I think the reason Abby Jimenez books stand out so much to me is because she writes with an understanding that adulthood is complicated. These aren't just books about falling in love. These are romance books about the difficulty of carrying the pain while trying to be loved correctly. There's something really mature about the way Abby Jimenez writes relationships. And after reading Say You Remember Me, Just for the Summer, and The Night We Met, I realized the reason her romance books work so well for me is not about chemistry or the romance. It was the emotional realism, and she does that really well. Her characters feel like adults with histories, emotional histories. People dealing with childhood trauma, family dysfunction, mental health struggles, caretaking responsibilities, fear of abandonment, and the pressure to keep it all together while trying to function in society. And what I really appreciated was that none of these topics or themes ever felt exploitative or overly dramatic in any way. There's a softness in the way she handles difficult struggles. She tackles these issues with grace and with maturity. These books are emotionally heavy without being emotionally exhausting. So in this video, I want to talk less about ratings and more about the emotional experience in her stories. What's up, stranger dangers of the entire internet? Hi, I'm Princess, and this is where I judge books, not people. However, I do want to make it very clear that this is not going to be a book review type of video. This is going to be more of an opinion responsive video than anything else. So first up, we have Say You Remember Me. This follows our main character who lives, I believe, in Minnesota. I'm not sure. She has her own career. She's doing her own thing, and she meets a hot veterinarian. There's chemistry. They hit it off, but it turns out she has to move back home to LA. I believe she has to take care of a sick parent and what it looks like to have a long distance relationship and building a relationship. And there's these themes of elder care and sacrificing, your dreams and your career aspirations for the family, and how that plays into your plan or how it can interrupt your plan and even your love life. That's just like a rough introduction of what the book is about. And so starting off, I do want to say that again, you can totally have your own opinion. It's not like whatever you don't want to like, it's totally fine. However, I do want to address the reason for me making this video, which is most of the opinions that I read or even watch online when they say that they don't like any one of these three books is there's more of like a lack of maturity, where it's Say You Remember Me, I don't like a long distance trope, I want more romance. Just for the Summer is too trauma heavy. Or The Night We Met, I don't really like the boyfriend, best friend trope. And that's all fair and valid. Well, what I noticed when I was doing my own little research of not just what people are saying, but the types of people saying the same thing, is they're young. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the opinion. There's nothing wrong with not liking your romance to have realism in there. I do love a fluffy palate cleanser romance here and there, for sure. But I think to disregard the sacrifices or the maturity and the level of adult to really grasp these themes that I'm going to go through for these three books, I don't really think it's fair for like a 22-year-old to say this book is a 2 because it's just really wrong to date your ex-boyfriend's best friend, or this book is a 2 because long distance relationships are, stupid or whatever, right? And so this is my take. This is my 2 cents on Abby Jimenez emotional realism, the heaviness that comes with being an adult, and the complications and the sacrifices and the complexities of adult relationships. I think the reason I love this book so much is because it was a long distance relationship, right? And what long distance relationships not just looks like, but how to make it work. How do you justify these sacrifices that you have to make, and not even just for your love life, but for your career, right? She quit her job. She took a financial hit moving back home and having to start all over again, while also taking care of aging parents and aging grandparents. That's real life. Like, those are like real adult issues that I appreciated so much seeing in a romance, right? It's life happening, but love still creeping its way into the margins of your life, right? It's, yes, I'm gonna sacrifice my career. Yes, I'm gonna take a financial hit, an independence hit, and even sacrifice my love life for family. People do that. These are adult complications. And so when I hear the anecdotal long distance relationship romances, and the book wasn't all that romantic, and it was just like, sometimes you need more than love to keep a relationship going, right? Sometimes you need more than just the romance and the fluffy stuff. That's what I loved about this book, is that it was hard. The book was full of sacrifices, but the main character still managed love, even in the wake of all of her hardship and all of her family heaviness and medical issues and aging grandparents and all of these things, financial issues within the family, all of these things, and still saying, I want love and I deserve love, but my family situation is complicated right now, right? That's the most adult thing I've ever read. And I think Abby Jimenez handled the main characters making these sacrifices. I think she handled it with grace and maturity, and I think she wrote it well enough to explain the realistic choices, right? And what that looks like. I think Abby Jimenez did a great job of portraying a young woman making all of these difficult decisions and sacrifices, and she portrayed it in a very realistic way, in an adult way. And adulthood is difficult and trying and complex, but she still managed to make this a love story. I love this book. I had such a great time with this book. I'm not going to give you a rating because it's not about that so much as it is about finding love stories with actual adult problems. The next great book, that my favorite book, is Just for the Summer. This is the third book in an interconnected series, so I believe it's Part of Your World, Yours Truly, and then Just for the Summer. This follows the main character she's a traveling nurse. That's what she is. And she kind of meets this guy on not a chat room, but like online. And they have this weird dating mishap in common. In order for them to kind of like work this out, they're like, hey, how about we fake date? And then the next person we end up together will be our match. And it was just supposed to be for the summer. And so as a traveling nurse, she kind of like, hey, I can be where you are for the summer, and we can fake date all summer, and it'd be cute and awesome. And so again, that's just like gist of the book, but the overall themes are going to be like childhood trauma, and the main character is dealing with avoidant personality disorder. And I just thought the representation of this type of exploration of childhood trauma was handled with care, and I thought it was done realistically. Some of the themes in this book includes mental health representation, childhood trauma, abandonment, abuse, really, and how that can manifest in adulthood, right? So being an adult and still trying to work through your childhood trauma, this was done so well, in my opinion. The main character is dealing with avoidant personality disorder, and that doesn't just affect someone's love life, right? It's affecting, her career choice and her friends and the ability to be close to someone, and how she's still dealing with the ramifications of her childhood trauma. But since this is a love story, of what childhood trauma does to your ability to love and be loved, and letting people in, trusting people, being vulnerable. When I went into this book, I wasn't really expecting, I don't want to say much, but I can tell that this being the third book, her writing really, I don't want to say matured, but she wrote something very complicated in a lot of difficult issues, and she did it with grace. She gave these characters a non-exploitative way to deal with their childhood trauma, to deal with their feelings, to deal with their hurt and their abandonment issues and all of these things, and still saying, okay, yeah, she's a little broken, right? She's damaged and hurt, and she pushes people away, and she doesn't trust anybody, and she is hyper independent, and she can't rely on anybody, and all of these things, right? I think Abby Jimenez, this being the third book in the series, I can tell her writing was really being pushed to write with emotional depth, to write stories about how hard it is to love, how hard it is to be, a child, to a not well parent. I don't want to give any spoilers away. I think she took her time with this character to develop the awareness that she does have avoidant personality disorder, and that it's not her fault, and she can get help and therapy and open up and all of this kind of stuff. And it took the entire book for her to come to this awareness and to say, I'm a whole person and I want to be loved and I want to try, but I'm still scared, but I'm still going to do it anyway, right? Like that. And it's not even so much the romance of the book or the falling in love part of the book. It's the awareness of, oh shit, I'm a little off. I'm broken, but I'm still gonna try to work on this because I do want him, because I do want to be in love. That's the most adult shit I've ever read. Are you kidding me? Yeah, Just for the Summer was absolutely my favorite read of 2025. It's one of my favorite books, and I think it's because of, there's romance in it, but it's not about the romance. It's about this whole person, this whole woman, this whole being of, she's capable of love, but she's scared, and she has all of this family baggage and foster care and family and friends, all of these things, this whole person and her career aspirations and all of this kind of stuff, right? And she's still saying, in all of my brokenness, in all of the things that I want to do and I have done, and all of the ways that I've grown, I have the awareness as an adult woman that I do want more and I can be more and I am deserving of more. Great book. Love that book. Okay, book 3, The Night We Met. It is Abby Jimenez's latest book, I believe. Yeah, it is. That book came out this year. The Night We Met follows, I believe her name is Larissa. She has 10 different jobs. She comes from a broken home. She has really bad credit, and she's in all of this debt due to her father, and her mom is not really the best role model as far as getting your life together and all of this kind of stuff. So she has her own baggage, right? She meets this guy at a concert, also with his friend. Sometime later, I believe it's a year later, she's with her boyfriend, Mike. Mike has his own issues and all of this kind of stuff, but Mike keeps pawning off his boyfriend responsibilities to his best friend, Chris. Chris and Larissa end up forming this really good friendship. This is definitely a ex-boyfriend, best friend trope, and I know so many people have feelings about that, and I get it. It's messy and complicated. Abby Jimenez, and she set this at the end of her book in the author's note. I don't know what it is verbatim, but it's something along the lines. She says she had this idea for this book years ago, and she knew at the point of her writing career that she wasn't going to be able to give it the maturity and the grace that this story needed. And so she did all of this other stuff, right? She wrote all of these other books. Say You Remember Me, Just for the Summer, Yours Truly, all of these things, right? She really said, I want to be ready to write this book, and I want to give it the adultness that it deserves, because this trope can absolutely come off trashy. This trope can come off Jerry Springer-ish easily, very easily, if it's not written right. And Abby Jimenez said, I needed time to not just craft a story, but craft my writing ability to write with this level of complexity as adults. And she did that so well, in my humblest of opinions. So when I hear people, mainly young people, talk about this trope, how trifling it is, and it's just so messy, I could never, and I don't want that kind of romance books and yada yada yada. Like, I get it, but also I think you're kind of missing, like, the superficial takeaway is the trope, right? It's, she did something trifling. She is now dating, she fell in love with her ex-boyfriend best friend. Like, who does that? What woman does that, right? Like, that's the most superficial takeaway. But underneath all of that, there's this whole other, again, this whole woman, this whole story, and it's not necessarily good or bad, but it's this gray complication that is adulthood. It's not always, I don't want to say crystal clear, it's not always a fairy tale, right? Romances are not always pretty and flattering, right? That's not everyone's love story. Larissa is dealing with the weight and the exhaustion of poverty and having to work all of these jobs and climbing herself out of debt and working herself to the bone and never having a day off, and in the weight of that, right? The weight of growing up in a broken home and not knowing what safety feels like, right? And I'm not talking about physical safety, but emotional safety, and having a place where you can have people that you can rely on. She has no one to rely on. She's, again, one of those hyper-independent women that has to be hyper-independent because she has no one to help her with the weight of being just a regular-ass human being, right? And with that, she's missing all of these cues with her boyfriend Mike, who I don't want to spoil anything, but he has his own issues. There's all of these red flags that her and his best friend Chris, everyone around him is missing all of these red flags. As his girlfriend, you would think she would pick up on some of these signs, but again, she's exhausted, she's distracted, and all of these things, right? I'm not making excuses, but when life is happening and you're being pawned off, your boyfriend can't help you. If my friend is the person that I can call and I can rely on him, and he shows up and he's there and I feel safe, isn't that where I would want to be? Isn't that what I deserve? To feel safe, emotionally safe? And she has an allergy, so also physically safe. I get why people are kind of hung up on the whole boyfriend's best friend, right? Or ex-boyfriend best friend. I get it. I understand the stickiness. I understand the complexity. But again, we're talking about the complexity of adulthood. Sometimes you fall in love with someone and it's horrible timing and it's not the best situation, but it happens. And how do you deal with that? And the other side of it is, do you sacrifice love because something is societally a taboo? How do you work through not necessarily the justification, but the deserving? She got to a point in the book where she realized that she deserved a day off. She deserved to be with someone that sees her and hears her. She deserved a certain type of love, even though she's never seen it before. She's never seen it witnessed with her parents, her mother. She has no idea what a healthy relationship looks like, but she's still saying, I deserve to be cared for and I deserve to be loved on, and I shouldn't have to work myself to the bone, and I shouldn't have to feel ashamed for loving someone who actually gives a shit about me. Right? That's kind of the theme that I've been finding in her books lately, and I really appreciate. But again, this is more of like response to the opinions, but also not necessarily the ratings. I don't really care about the ratings, but the opinions of younger women reading these books, and its long distance relationship romances are not romances, and too much hardship, mental health representation, or the family trauma representation, or the best friend trope is messy, and all of this kind of stuff. But again, the theme is not every love story can be nor should be fluffy fairy tale and easy. I love a good rom-com. I love a good palate cleanser. But for some of us women, especially, I don't want to say marginalized women, but women with mental health issues, and dealing with poverty, or dealing with low self-esteem, or whatever it might be, right? Adults issues and problems and sacrifices. These 3 books reminded me that life is hard, feelings are harder, and love is not always going to fix all the things, right? Love doesn't just swoop in and make everything all better. Like, that's not what she's saying. She's saying in the midst of you having your career change, and you having financial hardship, and you dealing with aging parents, and all of these things, love can still kind of happen in the margins, and it does. And also, broken girls need to see themselves in romances too. And I think that's my response to, again, don't have to like any of these books. You really don't. But broken girls need to see themselves in romances too, right? The hardship, the mental health aspect of it, the exhaustion of life, adulting, and still finding it, still having it, still fighting for it. That's what Abby Jimenez is writing. She's writing the complexities of adult women in the midst of their whole lives. Love doesn't swoop in and change them, or even save them. Say You Remember Me. I don't want to give any of the endings away, but none of these women were saved. None of these women were carried off into like a happy ending. They got love, but they were still dealing with childhood trauma, still going to therapy. Just for the Summer was a book. Oh my God. Her mother was a trip. Her mother was a trip in Just for the Summer. What a book. But her falling in love didn't fix the relationship between her and her mother, right? Her falling in love didn't fix her abandonment issues from her childhood, and make her going from foster care home to foster care home any better, right? Like, love didn't fix any of that, right? And Say You Remember Me, her mother having Alzheimer's, dementia, something. Her mother was sick with something, and she had to take care of her parent. Her falling in love didn't fix the brokenness in her family. It didn't mend her broken heart with her family, right? It didn't do any of that. In the Night We Met, she was still going to have to deal with the societal ramifications of, you're dating your ex-boyfriend's best friend. That's hard. And so love isn't always easy. Love isn't always fluffy and cute and about a 22-year-old who just stumbles into a great relationship with banter. Like, that's not always the story. Abby Jimenez, a great representation of adult romances. No one gets saved, but they still fall in love. If you have read any of Abby Jimenez books before, I really want to know which book impacted you the most. And if you normally avoid romances, I really think these 3 books are a great place to start. Maybe not just for the summer, because that's the 3rd book in a series, but I think this little collection is a great place to start. Also, hear me out. If there are any guys out there, I really want to have a conversation about your opinion about this book, The Night We Met. Let's chit chat. I would love to hear your thoughts on the boyfriend best friend trope. I think what makes Abby Jimenez books stand out to me is that her books understand something that a lot of other romance books miss. And also, I think a lot of younger women miss this as well when they're reading romance books, which is love doesn't magically erase trauma. It doesn't instantly heal any grief. It doesn't fix any loneliness, and it doesn't undo any insecurities. But she is saying that the right relationship can make it possible to start healing. And I think the way she writes emotional vulnerability requires a certain level of maturity. And that's it. Those are my thoughts. Those are my unsolicited opinions on the internet. If you actually like this video, like it. That's my whole video. You're enough no matter what you read, no matter how you rated any of these books. You're enough. Okay, thanks. Bye.